Hello to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Dave Statura from Alinean. Today's webcast is The Value of Move the Needle with Tom Pisello. Tom is the CEO and founder of Alinean and more well known as the ROI Guy. Before we begin, just want to let you know that this session is going to be recorded, and we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So please send any questions that you have anytime during the session using the WebEx chat feature. Just make sure to send it to all panelists, and we'll get those all set for the Q&A session near the end. I'll also be providing some links throughout the session, and that'll be there for your review as well. We have some great information to cover this morning, so let's go ahead and get started. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tom Pisello.
Dave, thanks so much, and welcome everyone. A common mantra that I know I've heard many times, and I've heard this preached by many sales leaders, is engage earlier and higher within the organization. And one of the things I wanted to see was, first of all, is there real research to back up that this works? I mean, it sounds logical if you're able to engage with the buyer at the early stages in their cycle. Sounds like a good idea, very difficult nowadays. And if you're able to engage higher with C-level executives or line of business executives, you know, that would seem like it would work well. But I really wanted to see if there was any research out there to say, well, you know, does this really have merit? And then if it does, what's the best way to kind of help tackle that? And we've got a new solution that's kind of aimed in that area. So we're going to introduce that to you today as well in the second part of today's session. So for now, though, let's take a look at what the evidence says in terms of the research. The first is, you know, does the early bird catch the worm? If you engage earlier with the customer in the buyer's journey, where the buyer has to come up with ideas for improvements, then explore various options and solutions, evaluate those solutions, and then ultimately select the solution. You know, does it pay to be engaged earlier? And we know that if you look at the research of Corporate Executive Board and several others, the digital journey has become more important than ever. And the common kind of industry benchmark for that is that, you know, if the buyer's 2/3 through the journey, they complete 57% of their buyer's journey online, and they're about 2/3 of the journey in before they engage with sales. I think Serious Decisions did a good job of dispelling that. And as well, Forrester has some great research that says, you know, if you're a sales rep and you just wait and respond to a request, so if there's an RFP and you respond to that, you know, what are your chances of winning? And the research says that it's only 26%. So 1 in 4 of the deals that you respond to, you've got a pretty good chance of winning. However, the research does indicate that if you're a sales rep and you're able to engage with the buyer, particularly to help them to come up with what's commonly called an epiphany, where they may not know of a particular issue, or they know of an issue, and you're really helping to illuminate for them what type of a priority it should be, what it's costing them, and how it's helping them or hurting them by making them non-competitive. 74% of the deals go to the provider who helps to establish the buying vision, helps to the buyer to come up with that ultimate epiphany. So clearly, the evidence points to that engage earlier certainly does work. And it's very important that even though the buyer might be conducting a digital journey throughout this process, helping to answer the questions of why change, why now, and why you, it's important we get our sales reps and we build marketing material and arm our sales reps with the right tools and knowledge so that they can engage as early as possible, giving executives a good reason to meet with them early, and then when they do have that meetings, making sure that they're effective. Now, the other part of the engage earlier and higher is the higher part. And we're noticing another very important change in the buying community. We know that there's more buyers than ever involved in a typical decision. Deals become $500,000 and more. So the bigger the deals are that you personally, your sales reps sell, the more executives are going to be involved, and the even though one research firm says the average is about 5, we see that in most deals, it's more like 8 to 10 are involved in ultimately the decision-making process. Now, the other trend that we see is not only is consensus important across that community of 8 to 10, but that executives, particularly C-level executives, are playing a much more active role in the buying decision-making process. They're not just setting up some big vision and then delegating the buying decision process. They're involved and actively engaged at almost every stage and are often serving as gatekeepers for you to advance to the subsequent stages. So really important to engage higher because according to MHI Global, the research firm from Miller Hyman, 65% of C-suite execs are indeed actively engaged. We also find from IDC that line of business executives are also very, very engaged as well. And what used to be kind of a technical purchase from, let's say, an IT group or a buy from particular buying groups or small business units, now it's line of business executives, C-suite executives that are in control of 80% of the budget. And when we want to get higher and we want to communicate better with these core executives, these stakeholders who are now more involved and more engaged in the process, we find that you've got to engage with different content. The traditional relationship sale doesn't really work well with these executives. The particular product or service knowledge, that often falls flat with them. What they're looking for is more competitive business and industry insights. And in fact, Serious Decisions indicates that they value that 4 times more than the typical kind of sales knowledge where they're good at relationships and good at knowing your product, knowing your service, but can't really talk to the business and industry insights. And we find that in a couple of surveys. Forrester did a great one and asked how often salespeople are prepared for meetings with executives. And sure enough, as you might expect, and probably where a lot of your training and enablement resources are focused, is that 62% of salespeople, when they call on execs, they're being perceived as knowledgeable about their products and services. So in one way, that's a good figure, but there's still 1 out of every 3 just about that aren't actually prepared with products and services. But at least we know that if the sales reps are calling on execs, they are knowledgeable about their products and services, and 62% would agree strongly with that. Now, the bigger issue comes when we look at the business and the business understanding of those sales reps. When the executives were asked the same question about knowledge of the exec's industry, understanding the executive's business, what they did and how they did it and how they were unique, and then understanding the exec's issues and where they help, we see a precipitous decline in the capability and perceived capability of the sales reps. And I think that's the most important thing, that this is perceived by the executives in an executive survey of over 300 different executive level buyers. And we can see that they don't think that the sales reps know the industry, know the business, and certainly aren't getting a handle on the exec's issues and contributing some value in terms of where they help. And as a result, we find that most of the sales reps, when it comes to the executives, first of all, they're lucky often to get a meeting with the executive, or even if they're skilled at getting meetings with executives, oftentimes those meetings are a disappointment when it comes to the executive's perception. 20% of salespeople met expectations, and only 1 in 4 are getting an agreement to meet again. So there's a pretty serious gap between our thought of kind of getting the sales reps to engage earlier and higher and their actual performance with the executive, if they can get those meetings early and if they can get the meeting higher, which is always a challenge to start with. Executives kind of know that they're going to be pitched to, unfortunately. And when those meetings do occur, they kind of fall in line with their low expectation that they're not delivering the business value that ultimately is needed. And when we look at the conversations, the engagement that business executives find valuable, we find, pretty obvious what you would think an executive would want, but obviously where salespeople are not meeting these ultimate goals. So the number one valuable conversation for executives, that the salesperson clearly shows they understand the business issues and that they can articulate how to solve them. So it's tying to a business issue, having some knowledge about that business issue, maybe how other peers have also been facing those issues, maybe research and insights around that area, and then being able to tie the solution in terms of how to solve it. So connecting the dots between issues and ultimate solutions. The second highest, 55% of the folks indicated as one of the top three issues, is the meeting helps me think about how to solve a business problem. So the executives, they I'm sure are aware of several issues in their business, but they don't really know how to solve it. And giving them a new way to maybe frame the challenge, and again, tying the solution to that challenge, could be a great way to alleviate some of this disappointment and get those follow-on meetings and keep that executive engaged, and also help to establish the buying vision. And then over half indicated that the top kind of valuable conversation is the salesperson shares insights with me that I did not consider before. So the whole ability to help educate the buyer on challenges that they should be addressing and helping them to uncover how those challenges might be manifesting in their own business and how much it could be costing them, totally key to having that success with engaging higher and engaging earlier. Now, one of the other important elements in connecting with executives, and one of the elements of neuroscience that could be used, is called the pressure of peers. And we find that peer pressure can provide a lot of motivation for people to change and also to purchase. So when you go into the meeting with the executive, if you could show them how they compare to peers and provide that as motivation for them to change. Here are how peers are succeeding above you, perhaps, so providing some competitive pressure. And also, here's how peers are implementing our solution to greatness is another particular valuable story and conversation to deliver. Now, the neuroscience behind this looked quickly and found a couple of key studies in terms of peer pressure that I thought were interesting. So did you know that if you're on a plane and the person in the seat next to you buys something, that could be a snack or a drink, or perhaps buys the movie or TV service, if you're not on JetBlue and you're on United and you have to pay for it, one of the key things is that if the neuroscientists looked at, and the economic decision makers looked at this and said, what was the propensity for the person in the seat next to you to buy something if you bought something, or if you're in the seat next to the person that buys something, how more often were you to make the purchase? And it was 30% more, and they were able to look at the data from aircraft purchases and the seats that people sat in to make this determination. So it was really a great data-driven study on the power of peers. If your peer is buying, more than likely you will as well. There was another study on SATs where when the flyers were handed out encouraging some 11th graders to sign up for a free SAT class, they had some of the flyers indicate that everyone in the class would know who signed up, and then other flyers indicated that whoever signed up would be held as private. And in honors classrooms, they handed these out. So in one case, they were invited and they knew that their peers would know whether they signed up or not in honors classes. And in the other, they knew that it was going to be private. And the ones that had the peer pressure of everyone would know if you signed up or didn't sign up, 25% more of the honor students actually signed up for the SAT. So again, kind of knowing that peers are doing something, what they're doing, and how they're doing it could really provide that extra pressure and motivation. And I thought the interesting thing in this study was they also handed out these flyers to non-honors kids, and the exact opposite was true. If the non-honors students knew that their attendance to the SAT class was going to be public, the attendance actually dropped. It went the opposite way, 25%. Again, peer pressure in that group, and having grown up in a pretty rough high school, I know this well, was you didn't want to be perceived as smart. It actually wasn't cool to be smart, and you had to really fight against that, and that peer pressure was always there. So very, very interesting in terms of both sides of the equation. And then the one that I kind of researched first and had seen this a while back was in Britain, to get more people to pay taxes, and they were actually able to get 15% more folks to pay taxes by applying peer pressure, which indicated in mailings to people that hadn't paid that the great majority of people in your area, quote unquote, pay their taxes on time. And most people with a debt like yours have paid it by now. So just by adding a couple little lines, it was able to kind of provide that extra peer pressure. And I think the era we're moving into is definitely this new era in B2B buying of what I call peer pressure buying, where the ability to, as a sales rep, as a marketer, put out content to help spur this either alignment with peers or competitive nature with peers, I think is going to be very, very important. If we can deliver to them unique insights of how they're falling behind their peers, or how they're succeeding above their peers. And if we can also show them a little bit down further the buyer's journey, kind of the colleagues, the case studies and success stories, that's all part of this new peer pressure buying phenomenon that is occurring. It's being spurred on by social media, networking, and it's easy for CXO buyers to kind of reach out to colleagues, folks they know, their personal networks, and third-party experts to kind of get the opinion about what to buy. And they are looking for your help in doing that as well. So as a sales rep, and as we arm our sales reps to go out and talk to these C-level executives and business executives, CIOs, line of business execs, CFOs, COOs, as we arm them to help to convince those buyers to take action, to change, to do it now, and to select you for the solution, we need to be conscious of and leverage the neuroscience of peer pressure to help drive these buyers to change. So one way to do that, and this is one of probably multiple tools that we see in a toolkit to kind of help with peer pressure buying and help to engage earlier and higher in the organization. This is a new tool that we're introducing called the Alinean Peer Comparison tool. And what it will allow you to do is to arm your sales reps, your consultants, your channel partners with a way to engage executive buyers around financial insights. Be able to run comparisons of the company you're going to visit against a handful of their closest competitors and see exactly how they're either leading or lagging the averages and the leaders and laggards in their peer group, and kind of where they stand, and give your sales folks a great visualization of that, and be able to stack up and look up any company across 60,000 worldwide. And we worked with Compustat, Standard & Poor, and the Capital IQ group to leverage services that they have to gather that data and to leverage it in the toolkit. And this really it helps us to assess visually where you stand, and then also the value of change with what's called a move the needle calculation. So if you're able to move the needle a little bit in a particular key performance indicator, what's the value of change, and ultimately how your solution can help to do that. And being able to do that in a comprehensive analysis presentation that you could leave behind so the buyer can socialize it with other executives and decision makers, and the ability to fit right into the workflow of the sales rep with a deep Salesforce integration. So if you're about to visit an account, you're about to visit on an opportunity, you can launch this analysis right from that opportunity or right from that account and get an analysis very quickly on them. And we can also share those insights and the metrics back into Salesforce for further use within the analysis. So the first thing that a sales rep would do is basically start the analysis and be able to go through 3 steps to ultimately get the analysis. So a nice little 3-step process to get there. The first is to pick the company that you're going to visit with. The second is to select the peers to compare with. And the third is to focus in on the key financial metrics ultimately to compare. And right now we've got 20 of the biggest, best key metrics to include in the analysis. So the first thing is you click on the company to include and select for the analysis. And in this case, I want to do the analysis with Marriott. Type in Marriott, hit the search. It comes up with a couple of companies, and you can pick any of those companies in the list. You can do partial searches with names, ticker symbols, and find the company in the database. As we indicated, the database has over 50,000, I think upwards of 60,000 different worldwide companies. Those companies are all public. So if you are going to visit with a private company and you do have the profile for that company, or you can work with the company to get the profile of them, you can always click on that Add New button, either for the company you're looking at or the comparisons to add a new company. And we can click on it and review the company metrics, pick whether we want to do the reporting and the analysis based on the annual report or the trailing 12 months. In this case, it looks like we've got data from Marriott that's a little bit older, so we'll probably do a trailing 12-month analysis, and we can go in and look at all of the key metrics for Marriott overall. And once we get Marriott selected, it will automatically load up a intelligently selected list of peers to compare with. So we have a algorithm to look through the database of companies and automatically find the best companies that we should be looking for comparing Marriott to, typically within the same industry, but also going a little bit sideways for other comparisons, and then looking at the company size, the location, how many employees it has, the revenue it has, to kind of pick the right peers to ultimately compare with. And then you hand select the exact peers that you want to analyze. Then overall, look at the financial metrics to compare, and you can pick those metrics out of the list. And then do a head-to-head comparison of Marriott to the selected peer group. In this case, I picked Hilton, Hyatt, Wyndham, and Wynn as the custom peer group to compare Marriott to. As we look at each line item, and I believe you can see my cursor here, we're looking at Hyatt in cash flow from operations as being one of the lagging companies, and Hilton being the leader. And if we look at Marriott, which is the little arrow, they're actually above the peer average, and the peer average is $1 billion. Hyatt is at 323 in cash flow from operations each year, and Hilton is the leader at 1.8. If we look at, for example, another metric, days payable outstanding, we see that Marriott is actually the lagging company in the whole list. So it's taking them the longest time to pay. And if we look at the peer average, it's at 95 days, and Hilton is at 28. If we also look at days sales outstanding, so how big the account receivable is from Marriott, we can also see that they're challenged in that area. They're lagging their peers, and lagging by quite a substantial amount. So depending on the solutions that you sell and the areas that you can improve these companies, you would select the metrics that ultimately you want to focus on. If your company can't impact DSO or days payable outstanding, or perhaps it doesn't affect debt to equity ratio, you don't have to pick those particular metrics. If you want to give an overall appreciation of the company, you can pick all of them. But normally what we do is we want the sales reps to focus on 5 or 6 key metrics that we know we can affect with the solutions we sell, and also where the company is challenged. So you can flexibly go back and forth between the selection of the ultimate metrics out of the list, and then very quickly go over and look at the performance on each and see where the company is leading, above average, below average, or lagging. Now, for each one of the particular metrics, we also have a little description here over on the right-hand side, and this is the move the needle analysis, where we can look at a particular impact on a metric and determine exactly how much moving the needle a little bit, in this case 1%. If we had a 1% reduction in DSO and we could reduce it from 138 days to 137 days, what would that result to in terms of cash flow in this case, and then an ultimate carry cost or carry opportunity that could be captured? Impact this metric 10%, and all of a sudden this turns into a $7 million benefit for the company. Similarly, on cash flow improvements, on revenue per employee, on revenue, there's a move the needle description on each one that gives you an indication of what a 1% improvement can do. And then in a subsequent version, we're going to add a little slider here so you can slide it up to 10 or 20 or 30% or 5%. But for now, the 1% gives you a great way to have a door-opening discussion that says, look, just moving the needle a little bit, 1%, here's what the improvement can be, and then easily projecting that to the exact benefit or the range of benefits that you think you can ultimately impact. One of the other important things with sales reps and financials is it's often hard to talk one-on-one with an executive. And for every one of the line items that we provide analysis on, those 20 or so metrics for the various comparisons, we provide a very clear explanation of exactly how every metric is calculated, how you can understand the metric, and provides guidance of whether, if the metric is high or the metric is low, what it actually means to the business and how moving the needle can help. So we can really help to empower your reps with not only a very quick visualization of the performance of the company they're going to go and visit, and that's what this is really for. Now, you can drill into every one of these companies and see the exact metrics for them all and compare them, but this visualization really lets you highlight where Marriott is doing a great job, where Marriott is lagging, and where they're doing better than average or worse than average on the spectrum, and also indicate the impact you can have and give them very clear understanding with these little eye icons of exactly what the impact means, how the value is calculated, and how to have that one-on-one conversation with the executive. And ultimately, you can get a report either in PowerPoint or a PDF so you can deliver it right to the customer, and you can even mail it to them right out of the tool, or PowerPoint if you want to take these elements and include them in a larger presentation for the provider. And then you can also optionally include company profiles and those KPI definitions, so the sales reps can get a very quick understanding of all the financials, know the profile of every company, as well as seeing the visualization. And overall, the output in the report looks very much like the output on the screen, where we're looking at particular performance across different metrics, seeing the move the needle, and each of these can be cut and pasted flexibly in a presentation, so you can either use the tool to parse out the metrics that you want to show to the buyer, or you can copy and paste these sections in to your PowerPoint and flexibly create a customized presentation for the executive. And the other key thing, there's two things in engaging earlier and higher. One is you've got to give a motivation for engaging earlier with that executive buyer. And if you can basically come in and do a competitive comparison for them and use this as the fuel to get that meeting, they're more likely to meet with you if you want to come in and talk about how they're performing, maybe share a data point with them and say, look, I'd like to discuss this data point and others with you of how you're doing and ways that we've analyzed other companies to help them improve. It's a great way to motivate the executive to ultimately meet with you. And then the other challenge that this really helps to solve is the value gap right now between the sales reps showing up to an executive and winding up and pitching the product or service that you've got, and that's not what the executives want. The executives want unique insights. They want information. They want to know that you understand their business, understand their industry, and this is one very important element that can really help to illuminate those particular metrics that they care about, and for you to have a tangible and very substantive discussion on each of those key metrics and how you ultimately can move the needle. So giving that reason for the executive meeting, giving you the ability to gauge early and higher, and then engage with intelligence, advice, and value. So the next step, we've got a free trial available. And Dave, I saw, was sharing some links with you on the peer comparison page. If as the next step to this, you want to email us or click on that button and provide your email, we can get you signed up for a free trial so you can try out the peer comparison tool on your own and actually use it ahead of accounts that you're going to go and visit. It's for sales teams and consultants. We've priced it very reasonably at $350 per user per year. We do have volume pricing. We do have branding, so we can brand the reports and brand the tool for your own use. So when you use it interactively with buyers, it's completely branded. And we also have the ability to add and shape it in semi-custom versions. So if there are additional metrics that you need, whether those be industry-specific metrics or other key performance indicator benchmarks that you can impact, we can extend the base tool that you'll see with the free trial to add any of those benchmarks to your personalized version. And obviously, there's a certain minimum purchase on those more personalized versions. But for most of the organizations we work with, they're well within those user counts. And we normally provide the personalization and some of the customization on the overall metrics. It's meant for use on a notebook and a tablet. We are working on a soon-to-come version that will size and scale down for use on a smartphone effectively. It can run on there, but some of the views are not as pretty as they need to be. So for now, notebook and tablet, Chrome browser best, and it is available now. So Dave, I saw some questions come in, so I want to pass it over to the group to get those questions answered.
Yeah, great. Guys, first of all, as a reminder, anyone who has a question, you can post them into the Q&A section on WebEx. We do have a few that have come in, Tom, so let me start. One that came up fairly early in the presentation, and it was, should sales reps be accompanied by a SME or an industry expert, or do they learn the industry business on their own? It seems very superficial without a real subject matter expert.
Yeah, I think anytime you can afford a subject matter expert, it's always better. This tool will help to supplement both the subject matter expert's knowledge and be able to have them quickly present compelling financials and move the needle calculations without, hardly any work. So that's a good thing as a productivity tool for them. It's great as a visualization tool. It's fantastic. But the challenge with the subject matter experts is there's only so many of them, and we really need to scale the sales activity and elevate sales reps so that they can have these conversations, they can engage, and they can start to move beyond product and service pitches to having financial discussions, albeit you can't automatically turn them into SMEs with just a tool, so it will take time. But the tool will do wonders in terms of giving them the content that if they look at it, review it, understand it before the meeting, and ultimately do their homework, it'll educate them enough to where they're perhaps not as good as having the SME there, but since you can't have SMEs in all the meetings, it will really help to arm them to become SME-like.
We have another question, Tom, and this might need a little clarification, but the question is, does the peer comparison tool work with public sector organizations? And I guess maybe a follow-up with that is, does it also work with private sector organizations?
Yeah, so Dave, the companies that are included are public companies. They need to be listed on a stock exchange somewhere in the world, and I believe the tool feeds in from over 30 different stock exchanges, most notably NYSE and NASDAQ, but it goes beyond that worldwide. And it does include some 60,000 worldwide companies, and most of the ones that you would visit on and most of their peers. What it does not include is private companies, companies that don't publish their financials and are not listed on one of those included exchanges. However, the tool can be extended to support those. So there is the ability to go add new, either on a competitor or on the company you're analyzing. So if you're visiting a private company, but they want to compare to public companies, you can click and get them to add their data to the tool, and then you can then compare them to other public companies so that the tool can be used with companies that are not on a public exchange, but you do have to interview them to get their financials for the past 12 months to include.
Great. We had one other question regarding the Salesforce integration. Does this require a Salesforce.com account to use?
It does not. That's a great question. There's a separate login. We can connect it into a single sign-on, and or you can integrate it with a managed package called our Value Cloud into Salesforce, so that you can launch it out of Salesforce. So it has those three access criteria. You can, it has a separate login if you want to use a separate username, which is their email address, and a password. It can be connected in with Okta or any other single sign-on solution, or it can integrate with Salesforce so they can authenticate with their Salesforce ID and also launch it from the account and opportunity views within Salesforce.
Excellent. Question we have right now, Tom. The comment is the tool looks great, but don't a lot of salespeople already use things like Google Alerts, Hoovers, etc. when preparing for a sales call? Is this tool supposed to replace those?
Yeah, that's a great question, and there is news that's included in the tool, like Google Alerts has. The financial information, if they already have a Hoovers account, they can definitely look up, like for Marriott, you can look up Marriott and you could look at the financials for Marriott. You can get news on Marriott. You can also even do a little bit of a peer comparison on Marriott, where you can list Marriott head-to-head with the other companies. The problem is that although that can get you some of the data, it doesn't give you the analysis and the visualization that you need. So you've got to spend quite a bit of time on top of Hoovers then to do the analysis of, okay, what's the peer average? Where does the company sit on the spectrum? Who's the leader? Who's the laggard? What's the value of moving the needle, which is a very difficult calculation to ultimately prepare. And so for a couple of the accounts that we're working with that are using the peer comparison tool, they were using data sources like Google and Hoover's and Edgar's and Yahoo Financial. You can get financials off of there as well. And they were manually compiling this, manually doing the visualizations, and then were not even able to do the move the needle calculations. But they had basically an Indian outsource group doing some of this report preparation, and it was taking long turnarounds, quite a bit of hours to prepare, and then even there it wasn't as complete. So although the information that we're providing can be gathered from other sources, the source we use is the highest quality, so they normalize all of the data and also take care of all the currency translations and everything else. It's very up to date, so as soon as a filing is done, it's available through the web service that we use. And so within usually a day or two of a filing, the normalized financials are posted and they're immediately accessible in the toolkit. And then all of the visualization and help and move the needle are value add that we put on top of it, all at a price that's likely less than what you're paying for Hoover's today, and certainly less than what it would take to set up a service desk to ultimately do this.
That's great, Tom. Thanks. Well, that is all the questions that we currently have. So thanks, Tom, for this great presentation and sharing this information with us. And definitely a special thank you to all the attendees out there today. Just want to follow up that we'll be sending everyone a link to the webinar recording, plus all of the links that I shared in the chat. If you didn't have a chance to look at those so far, we'll send that out as a follow-up. And also some additional information about our next webinar, which is Hit Your Channel Sales Goals with ROI Selling. This is going to be on February 9th, so we'll definitely follow up with that. And finally, you may have saw the slide that Tom showed a second ago. We hope to see you guys at the Alinean Business Value Summit, March 1st in Santa Clara, California, March 9th in Boston, Massachusetts. We'll send a link out to that. That is a half-day, we think a really great opportunity to learn more about some best practices with some industry leaders, some great research around the latest and greatest in business value, on selling and marketing with business value. So we'll send a link out to that as well. And again, thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you, Tom, and have a great day and good value marketing and selling to everyone.